Dear students, I hope you all are keeping great and preparing really smartly for your final board exams as well as various entrance exams lined up in the next few months. To just give you a boost in your preparation, why not check few Ncert Exemplar questions and answers? To begin with, let us check the chapter Reproduction in Organisms. We have 4 sections lined up for you. Section A, MCQs. Section B, very short answer type questions. Section C, short answer type questions, while long answer type questions will be dealt with in Section D. So to get going, let us begin with multiple choice questions in Section A. Section A, multiple choice questions. The number of chromosomes in the shoot tip cells of a maize plant is 20. The number of chromosomes in the microspore mother cells of the same plant shall be 20, 10, 40, or 15. Please note, both shoot tip cells and microspore mother cells of a maize plant are diploid. Thus, the correct answer shall be A, 20. Which of the following is a post-fertilization event in flowering plants? Transfer of pollen grains, embryo development, formation of flower, or formation of pollen grains? Embryo development is a post-fertilization event in flowering plants. Identify the incorrect statement. In asexual reproduction, the offspring produced are morphologically and genetically identical to the parent. Zoospores are sexual reproductive structures. In asexual reproduction, a single parent produces offspring with or without the formation of gametes. Conidia are asexual structures in penicillium. Here, the incorrect statement is B, that is, zoospores are sexual reproductive structures. In fact, they are asexual spores that are motile in nature. There are various types of reproduction. The type of reproduction adopted by an organism depends on the habitat and morphology of the organism, morphology of the organism, morphology and physiology of the organism, or the organism's habitat, physiology, and genetic makeup. Please note, an organism's habitat, physiology, and genetic makeup, as well as various other factors, decide the type of reproduction adopted by it. There is no natural death in single-celled organisms like amoeba and bacteria because they cannot reproduce sexually. They reproduce by binary fission. Parental bodies distributed among the offspring, they are microscopic. As parental bodies distributed among the offspring, it is considered that amoeba and bacteria do not have natural deaths. Choose the correct statement from amongst the following. Dioecious or hermaphrodite organisms are seen only in animals. Dioecious organisms are seen only in plants. Dioecious organisms are seen in both plants and animals. Dioecious organisms are seen only in vertebrates. Please note, dioecious organisms are seen in both plants and animals. So the correct option is C. Offspring formed by sexual reproduction exhibit more variation than those formed by asexual reproduction because sexual reproduction is a lengthy process. Gametes of parents have qualitatively different genetic composition. Genetic material comes from parents of 2 different species, or greater amount of DNA is involved in sexual reproduction. As the gametes of parents have qualitatively different genetic composition, offspring formed by sexual reproduction exhibit more variation than those formed by asexual reproduction. Which of the following statements support the view that elaborate sexual reproductive process appeared much later in the organic evolution? Lower groups of organisms have simpler body design. Yes, they do have. Asexual reproduction is common in lower groups. True. Asexual reproduction is common in higher groups of organisms. Not true. The high incidence of sexual reproduction in angiosperms and vertebrates. Yes, angiosperms and vertebrates do exhibit high incidence of sexual reproduction. So among options A, B, C, and D, we have option C as the correct option here. That is 1, 2, and 4 are true statements. Appearance of vegetative propagules from the nodes of plants such as sugarcane and ginger is mainly because nodes are shorter than internodes, nodes have meristematic cells, nodes are located near the soil, nodes have non-photosynthetic cells. Appearance of vegetative propagules from the nodes of plants such as sugarcane and ginger is mainly because nodes have meristematic cells. Which of the following situations correctly describe the similarity between an angiosperm egg and a human egg? Eggs of both are formed only once in a lifetime? No, they can form multiple times. Both the angiosperm egg and human egg are stationary, while option 3 says both the angiosperm egg and human egg are mobile. No. Syngamy in both results in the formation of zygote. Yes. So among the options A, B, C, and D, we find option B stating that statement 4 is the correct statement. So we choose option B. That is, syngamy in both results in the formation of zygotes. The statements given below describe certain features that are observed in the pistil of flowers. A pistil can have a single carpel or several carpels. Each carpel may have more than one ovule. Each carpel has only one ovule, or pistils have only one carpel. Choose the statements that are true from the options below. A, 1 and 2, B, 1 and 3, C, 2 and 4, D, 3 and 4. If we carefully check the statements, we find option 1 and 2, that is, a pistil can have a single carpel or several carpels, or and each carpel may have more than one ovule. Both the statements are correct. So we have option A as the correct option. Given below are a few statements related to external fertilization. Choose the correct statements. The male and female gametes are formed and released simultaneously. Only a few gametes are released into the medium. Water is the medium in a majority of organisms exhibiting external fertilization. Offspring formed as a result of external fertilization have better chance of survival than those formed inside an organism. Option A, 3 and 4, option B, 1 and 3, option C, 2 and 4, option D, 1 and 4. Here, the statement 1, that is, the male and female gametes are formed and released simultaneously, that's a true statement. On the other hand, water serves as the medium in a majority of organisms exhibiting external fertilization. This is also a true statement, while the other are not. So we have option B, that is 1 and 3, as correct statements. The male gametes of rice plant have 12 chromosomes in their nucleus. The chromosome number in the female gamete, zygote, and the cells of the seedling will be respectively 12, 24, 12, 24, 12, 12, 12, 24, 24, or 24, 12, 24. Here, the gametophytic structure contains 12 chromosomes, as mentioned in the question. That is, the male gametes are having 12 chromosomes, while the sporophytic structure contains 24 chromosomes, 2n. Therefore, the number of chromosomes in the female gamete will be equivalent to the number of chromosomes in the male gamete, that is 12. The zygote will have 24 chromosomes, while the cells of the seedling will also have 24 chromosomes. A multicellular filamentous alga exhibits a type of sexual life cycle in which the meiotic division occurs after the formation of zygote. The adult filament of this alga has haploid vegetative cells and diploid gametangia, diploid vegetative cells and diploid gametangia, diploid vegetative cells and haploid gametangia, or haploid vegetative cells and haploid gametangia. Adult filament of a multicellular filamentous alga has haplontic life cycle, in which the meiotic division occurs after the formation of zygote. The correct option is D, that is haploid vegetative cells and haploid gametangia. A few statements regarding sexual reproduction are given below. Sexual reproduction doesn't always require two individuals. Yes, it may happen. Sexual reproduction generally involves gametic fusion. Meiosis never occurs during sexual reproduction. External fertilization is a rule during sexual reproduction. No, it is not a rule. Choose the correct statements from the options below: 1 and 4, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 1 and 4. So we see the statements 1 and 2 are correct. So the option B is the correct option for this question. Asexual method of reproduction by binary fission is common to which of the following? Some eukaryotes, all eukaryotes, some prokaryotes, all prokaryotes. So binary fission as an asexual mode of reproduction is displayed by some eukaryotes as well as some prokaryotes. So the correct option is C, 1 and 3. The term clone cannot be applied to offspring formed by sexual reproduction because offspring do not possess exact copies of parental DNA. DNA of only one parent is copied and passed onto the offspring. Offspring are formed at different times. DNA of parent and offspring are completely different. As the offspring do not possess exact copies of parental DNA, the term clone cannot be applied to offspring formed by sexual reproduction. A few statements describing certain features of reproduction are given below. Gametic fusion takes place. Transfer of genetic material takes place. Reduction division takes place. Progeny have some resemblance with parents. Select the options that are true for both sexual and asexual reproduction from the options given below. A, 1 and 2, B, 2 and 3, C, 2 and 4, D, 1 and 3. Here we find that statements 2 and 4 are correct. That is, yes, transfer of genetic material does take place in both asexual and sexual mode of reproduction, while the progeny also have some resemblance with parents. Reduction division is not a common feature between both, as well as gametic fusion is also not a common feature between the two. So the option C is correct. Next, we move to section B, very short answer type questions. First, match the organisms given in column A with the vegetative propagules given in column B. In the column A, we have bryophyllum, agave, potato, and water hyacinth. While on the column B, we have offset, eyes, leaf buds, and bulbils. So, considering the vegetative mode of reproduction, we have the correct match as bryophyllum with leaf buds, agave with bulbils, potato with eyes, and water hyacinth with offset. What do the following parts of a flower develop into after fertilization? Ovary develops into the fruit, ovules, the seeds. Which of the following are monoecious and dioecious organisms? Please note, monoecious refers to an invertebrate animal or a plant which has both the male and female reproductive organs in the same individual, also known as hermaphrodite, while dioecious implies having the male and female reproductive organs in separate individuals. The question has the following organisms: artworm, chara, mercantia, cockroach. Artworm is monoecious, chara is monoecious, mercantia is dioecious, cockroach is dioecious. The figure given below mark the ovule and pericarp. As shown, the ovule and the pericarp are represented. In haploid organisms that undergo sexual reproduction, name the stage in the life cycle when meiosis occurs. Give reason for your answer. Meiosis takes place during its post-zygotic stage. It's a haploid organism, which undergoes sexual reproduction. Now, as the organism is haploid, meiosis cannot occur during gametogenesis. That's it. Is there a relationship between the size of an organism and its lifespan? Give 2 examples in support of your answer. Lifespans of organisms are not necessarily correlated with their sizes, or in other words, sizes do not necessarily dictate the lifespans of organisms. To cite for evidence, the sizes of crows and parrots are not very different, yet their lifespans show a wide difference. Lifespan of crow, it's around 15 years, while that of a parrot, it's around 140 years, as stated in the Ncert textbook. In comparison to a banyan tree, a banana plant has a much shorter lifespan. Is the presence of large number of chromosomes in an organism a hindrance to sexual reproduction? Justify your answer by citing suitable example. Presence of large number of chromosomes in an organism is not a hindrance to sexual reproduction. As an example, the fern Ophioglossum reticulatum has roughly 630 pairs of chromosomes. In other words, 1,260 chromosomes per cell. That's a huge number. Still, it can reproduce sexually. Rearrange the following events of sexual reproduction in the sequence in which they occur in a flowering plant: embryogenesis, fertilization, gametogenesis, pollination. The sequence is gametogenesis precedes pollination, which precedes fertilization, and towards the end we have embryogenesis. Between an annual and a perennial plant, which one has a shorter juvenile phase? Give a reason. Juvenile phase refers to the period of growth between birth of an individual up to reproductive maturity. You can check the 2 panels to get a comparative account of annuals and perennials. An annual has a shorter juvenile phase. Since its entire life cycle must be completed in one growing season, its juvenile phase is shorter. Although potato tuber is an underground part, it is considered as a stem. Why? The tuber has nodes and internodes, like a stem, and leafy shoots appear from the nodes. Thus, although potato tuber is an underground part, it is considered as a stem. Why do we prefer to offspring formed by asexual method of reproduction as clones? We prefer to state offspring formed by asexual method of reproduction as clones because they are morphologically and genetically similar to the parent. Mention 2 inherent characteristics of amoeba and yeast that enable them to reproduce asexually. They are unicellular organisms and they have a very simple body structure. Next, we move to section C, short answer type questions. Draw the sketches of zoospores and conidia. Mention 2 dissimilarities between them and at least one feature common to both structures. The structure of zoospores as seen in Chlamydomonas and structure of conidia as seen in Penicillium are represented respectively on the left and right panel diagrams. To mention about the dissimilarities, the zoospores are flagellated structures while conidia are non-flagellated structures. Zoospores are formed inside a sporangium, that is endogenously, while conidia are formed at the tip of conidiophore exogenously. The common feature between both of them are asexual reproductive structures are represented by both. That is, they serve in asexual reproduction in different organisms. Why cell division cannot be a type of reproduction in multicellular organisms? In unicellular organisms, cell division is the means of reproduction. leading to increase in their number. While in case of multicellular organisms, they have well-developed reproductive organs which help in reproduction. Their whole body does not participate in reproduction like unicellular organisms. Primarily, mitosis increases the number of cells in a multicellular organism, which leads to the growth or repair of damaged tissues of its body. Cell division cannot be thus considered as a type of reproduction in multicellular organism. Furthermore, meiosis has specific roles in maintaining or ensuring the maintenance of the chromosome number from generation to generation, that is reduction division. Why do gametes produced in large numbers in organisms exhibit external fertilization? In external fertilization, there is a high probability that the sperm and the eggs released by the organisms can be affected by environmental factors like desiccation, predation, and so on. Thus, to make up for the high fertility rate of the gametes, the organisms produce a lot of gametes. Producing large number of gametes increase the chance for at least some gamete, that is the eggs and the sperms, to meet in the environment, safeguarding that at least a stable number of offspring would be able to survive and carry on. Please note, organisms exhibiting external fertilization show great synchrony between the sexes and release a large number of gametes into the surrounding medium. On a specific note, water, in order to enhance the chances of syngamy. This happens in the bony fishes and frogs, where a large number of offspring are produced. A major disadvantage is that the offspring are extremely vulnerable to predators, threatening their survival up to adulthood. Next, the probability of fruit set in a self-pollinated bisexual flower of a plant is far greater than a dioecious plant. Explain. In self-pollinated bisexual plants, transfer of pollens to stigma of flowers is easier than that in the dioecious plants. It is so because the anther and stigma lie close, and pollination is not affected even in the absence of pollinator. Thus, there is assured fruit set in self-pollinated bisexual flower even in the absence of pollinators. However, in dioecious plants, pollinator is necessary to bring about effective pollination, as the anther and stigma lie away from each other. So, the probability of fruit set in a self-pollinated bisexual flower of a plant is far greater than a dioecious plant. Justify the statement, vegetative propagation is also a type of asexual reproduction. This may be justified under the following context. Vegetative propagation, just like asexual reproduction, is uniparental. Offspring produced after vegetative propagation are clones of their parent. There is no reduction, division, or gamete formation. No fertilization occurs during vegetative propagation. Thus, these factors attest the veracity of the statement that vegetative propagation is also a type of asexual reproduction. Suggest a possible explanation why the seeds in a pea pod are arranged in a row, whereas those in tomato are scattered in the juicy pulp. In a fruit, seed arrangement depends on type of placentation. Pea shows marginal placentation, while tomato shows axial placentation. This explains why the seeds in a pea pod are arranged in a row, whereas in tomato, they're scattered in the juicy pulp. In a developing embryo, analyze the situation. If cell divisions are not followed by cell differentiation, what would happen? During embryogenesis, zygote undergoes cell division, that is mitosis, and cell differentiation. While cell divisions increase the number of cells in the developing embryo, cell differentiation helps groups of cells to undergo certain modifications, generating specialized tissues and organs to form an organism. So, if cell divisions are not followed by cell differentiation, then there will be no formations of tissues or organs, and consequently, a new or complete organism cannot be formed. Fertilization is not an obligatory event for fruit production in certain plants. Explain the statement. In botany and horticulture, parthenocarpy is the natural or artificially induced, primarily through phytohormonal treatment, production of fruit without fertilization of ovules, which makes the fruit seedless. Varieties of pineapple, banana, cucumber, and orange exemplify naturally occurring parthenocarpy. The seedless fruits that are available in the market, such as pomegranate, grapes, etc., are also good examples. Thus, fertilization is not an obligatory event for fruit production in certain plants. Seedless fruits is what we get through parthenocarpy. Is it possible to consider vegetative propagation observed in certain plants such as bryophyllum, water hyacinth, ginger, etc. as a type of asexual reproduction? Give 2 to 3 reasons. Vegetative propagation is considered as a type of asexual reproduction because this is uniparental, clone formation takes place, there is no fertilization. Which type of reproduction do we associate the reduction division? Analyze the reasons for it. Reduction division or meiosis is associated with sexual reproduction. The reasons for this are, since sexual reproduction involves the fusion of 2 types of gametes, the male and the female, they must have haploid number of chromosomes. The cell, that's the myocyte, which gives rise to gametes, often has diploid number of chromosomes, and it is only by reducing the number by half that leads to formation of haploid gametes. Furthermore, reduction division also ensures maintenance of constancy of chromosome number from generation to generation. Honeybees, they produce their young ones only by sexual reproduction. In spite of this, in a colony of bees, we find both haploid and diploid individuals. What's the reason behind their formation? Honeybees have a wide diversity in their colony. As shown on the diagram, they have haplodiploid sex determination. Fertilized eggs, that is the zygote, can give rise to the queen and the workers. Both are females by the process of sexual reproduction. On the other hand, the unfertilized eggs or the ova develop into drones, which are males by the process of parthenogenesis. Okay, so here we have the fertile haploid males, which serve as drones, the sterile diploid females as workers. However, please note, worker bees are sexually immature. They have reduced ovaries and are unable to mate. And there is one fertile diploid female as the queen. The number of taxa exhibiting asexual reproduction is drastically reduced in higher plants, angiosperms, and higher animals, vertebrates, as compared with lower groups of plants and animals. Analyze the possible reasons for this situation. Both angiosperms and vertebrates have a more complex structural organization. They have evolved very efficient mechanism of sexual reproduction. Since asexual reproduction does not create new genetic pools in the offspring and consequently hampers their adaptability to external conditions, these groups have resorted to reproduction by the sexual methods. Finally, we move to section D, long answer type questions. Here, I'm placing the points. You can elaborate according to the marks. So let's check out. Differentiate between oestrus and menstrual cycle and oviparous and viviparous organisms. Cite an example for each type. First, let us check the differences between oestrus cycle and menstrual cycle. Oestrus cycle occurs in non-primates such as cow, sheep, deer, dogs, tiger, etc. Menstrual cycle occurs in primates, monkeys, apes, human beings. Oestrus cycle consists of a short period of oestrus or heat. Menstrual cycle consists of menstrual phase, proliferative phase, and secretory phase. Shading of endometrium and bleeding do not occur in the oestrus cycle. Shedding of endometrium and bleeding occur in menstrual cycle. Next, we move to oviparous organisms and viviparous organisms. Oviparous animals lay fertilized or unfertilized eggs. Viviparous animals give birth to young ones. The fertilized eggs remain covered by hard calcareous shell and laid in safe place in the environment. After a period of incubation, young ones hatch out as far as oviparous organisms are concerned, while the fertilized egg develops into a young one inside the body of the female organism in viviparous organisms. Chances of survival of young ones is less as the female lay egg in the open environment. Chances of survival of young ones is more because of proper embryonic care and protection inside the mother's body. Birds and reptiles, oviparous organisms. Mammals like human, cow, lion, horse, cat, dog, etc. are viviparous organisms. Exception, monotremes, which include the platypus. They are egg-laying mammals. All the gametes formed from a parent organism have the same genetic composition, identical DNA copies of the parental genome. Analyze the situation with the background of gametogenesis and give suitable explanation. You might be knowing that meiosis mediates the production of genetically distinct haploid daughter cells from a diploid parent cell. In the Pectian and diplotin stages of meiosis 1, the phenomenon of crossing over and chiasma formation take place. This leads to exchange of DNA segments between one chromatid and other in a random manner, resulting in several new combinations of DNA sequences. Secondly, the maternal-paternal chromosomes undergo independent assortment. As a result, when meiotic division is completed, gametes possess DNA with varying degree of variations. Rose plants produce large, attractive bisexual flowers, but they seldom produce fruits. On the other hand, a tomato plant produces plenty of fruits, though they have small flowers. Analyze the reasons for failure of fruit formation in rose. Please note, both these plants, rose and tomato, are selected by human beings for different characteristics. The rose for its flower and tomato for its fruit. Roses, being vegetatively propagated, do not need to produce seeds. Nevertheless, when we analyze the situation, failure of fruit formation in rose may be attributed to multiple reasons. Some of the likely reasons are: rose plants may not produce viable pollen, rose plants may not have functional egg, rose plants may have abortive ovules. Being hybrids, the meiotic process may be abnormal, resulting in non-viable gametes. There may be self-incompatibility. There may be internal barriers for pollen tube growth and/or fertilization. Enumerate the differences between asexual and sexual reproduction. Describe the types of asexual reproduction exhibited by unicellular organisms. When we compare asexual and sexual reproduction, number of points of difference spring up. Asexual reproduction involves single organism, while sexual reproduction involves one or two organisms. No production of gametes in asexual reproduction, while male and female gametes are produced in sexual reproduction. Fusion of gametes is not observed in asexual reproduction, while sexual reproduction involves fusion of male and female gametes. Asexual reproduction requires only mitotic division, while meiotic division followed by mitotic division is seen in sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction produces offsprings that are identical to the parent, while offsprings generated through sexual reproductions have some characters from the male parent and others from female parent, while some characters may not be present in either of the parents. That's a very important point. In asexual reproduction, the chance of genetic variation is only through random mutation, while in sexual reproduction, there is greater chance for genetic variation. Asexual reproduction is not very useful for natural selection in evolution of species. Sexual reproduction is highly useful for natural selection in evolution of species. Asexual reproduction, there are multiple modes like budding, fragmentation, sporulation. while pollination, fertilization are events in sexual reproduction. When we talk about the various types of asexual reproduction exhibited by unicellular organisms, we can mention about the binary fission. The unicellular organism undergoes amitotic or mitotic cell division and two daughter cells are produced. The parent generation ceases to exist after binary fission. Example, simple binary fission as seen in amoeba, longitudinal binary fission as seen in euglena, transverse binary fission as seen in paramecium, depending on the axis of division. Multiple fission, what happens? During multiple fission, the nucleus of the mother cell divides into multiple nuclei. A cyst develops around the mother cell. The cyst helps the mother cell to tide over unfavorable circumstances. On resumption of favorable circumstances, the cyst disintegrates and many new individuals are released. Example, Plasmodium. Budding. In this case, a bud develops at one end of the cell. The nucleus produces a daughter nucleus, which then enters into the bud. The bud then gets detached from the mother cell and develops into a new individual. Example, yeast. You can furnish suitable diagrams with your answers to get real good marks. So that's all for this session. All the best. We shall meet again with the next chapter.